To the millions of viewers who've tuned in over the years, Alaskan Bush People has been more than just a TV show. It's been a window into a wild, untamed world that seems disconnected from the modern-day chaos of cities, smartphones, and social media. The Brown family, self-described as living off the grid in the remote wilderness of Alaska, captured hearts with their simple way of life, deep family bonds, and the raw challenges they faced together. But for one of the show's central figures, Noah Brown, the experience of growing up in front of the camera would become something far more complicated, more painful, and far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. For every fan who saw Noah as a genius in the rough, there were those who mocked his behavior, questioned his authenticity, or made cruel jokes online. Unlike his siblings, Noah struggled to find his place in the public image the show painted. He wasn't the rugged outdoorsman like Bam Bam. He wasn't the comic relief like Bear. He was cerebral, emotional, and deeply private, a personality type that didn't always translate well on television. And as the spotlight grew brighter, so too did the shadows in his life. This video seeks to peel back the layers behind the stoic, often misunderstood figure we saw on screen. It is not a sensationalized story designed to entertain. Rather, it is a deep dive into the emotional and psychological journey of Noah Brown, his triumphs, his inner battles, and most of all, the heartbreaking tragedies that shaped the man he is today. On July 18, 1992, deep in the remote reaches of Alaska, Noah Brown entered the world, not in a bustling hospital, but surrounded by trees, wildlife, and a family with a dream of living off the grid. As the fifth child of Billy and Ami Brown, Noah's birth came at a time when the Brown family was fully committed to their wilderness lifestyle. They were not weekend survivalists. They were pioneers, carving out a life in some of the harshest, most unforgiving terrain in North America. Billy and Ami Brown, his parents, had long since abandoned traditional society. Driven by Billy's intense belief that modern civilization was suffocating the human spirit, the family built cabins with their bare hands, fished from icy waters, and hunted to survive. Electricity, running water, and processed food were foreign luxuries. Education was passed down from parent to child. Lessons in tracking animals, starting fires, and surviving in freezing temperatures. Noah, from an early age, was different. While his brothers and sisters excelled in wilderness skills, climbing trees, hauling wood, building shelters, Noah often found himself observing the world more than conquering it. His mind moved in strange and wonderful ways. As a toddler, he'd take apart anything he could get his hands on. By the age of 5, he was trying to design fishing lures from leftover scrap metal. His parents noticed it early. Noah wasn't just surviving, he was imagining. He was imaginative, introspective, and full of questions. He wanted to know how things worked, why snow fell, how wind turned into energy, how to build a battery from river stones. While most of the Brown kids were content chasing squirrels or fishing with spears, Noah was often off in a corner tinkering with an old engine or sketching out inventions in the dirt with a stick. But in a world that valued brute strength and endurance, Noah's brilliance was sometimes overlooked. Even among his own siblings, his intellectual curiosity was misunderstood. "He's always building weird stuff," Bear once said in an early episode of Alaskan Bush People. "Sometimes I don't even know what the heck he's doing." This distinction, being the odd one out, would follow Noah throughout his life. And although his family loved him, it was clear that Noah was marching to the beat of his own wilderness drum. As the years passed, the Browns moved frequently, sometimes by boat, sometimes on foot, always seeking new terrain. They faced threats from bears, storms, and starvation. Through it all, Noah learned the same survival skills as his siblings, but he always added his own twist. Where others would build a fire pit, Noah would try to invent a smoke circulator. Where others would tie a raft together, Noah would install a handmade rudder system. Even as a teenager, the seeds of his future struggle were already being planted. He didn't quite fit into the mold of the wild bushman. And while this difference would later become his greatest strength, it would also become his deepest pain. In 2014, the Brown family made a fateful decision to allow cameras into their off-grid life. The Discovery Channel had approached them with a concept: film their daily existence, their wilderness lifestyle, and share it with the world. Billy Brown, always entrepreneurial and eager to provide for his family, agreed. Thus, Alaskan Bush People was born. The first season introduced viewers to the unconventional Brown clan, Billy and Ami, along with their 7 children, Matt, Bam, Bear, Gabe, Noah, Snowbird, and Rain. Each had a unique personality, but it was Noah who stood out the most, often in confusing ways. On television, Noah came across as eccentric. With his soft voice, intellectual mannerisms, and curious inventions, he was a far cry from the rugged, macho survivalist archetype the show emphasized. Audiences were intrigued. Some fans loved him instantly, calling him a bush genius. Others mocked him for being awkward, even suggesting he was faking his quirks for the camera. The producers, sensing a character arc, leaned into his peculiar personality. Scenes were often cut to highlight Noah's inventions, his homemade wind turbines, boats powered by unconventional energy, or bizarre survival gadgets. While this attention brought Noah into the spotlight, it also painted a caricature of him that didn't fully capture the depth of his personality. Off-camera, Noah was struggling. He didn't enjoy being reduced to comic relief or the weird one. He wanted to be respected, not just for his survival skills but for his intellect and creativity. Yet, in the high-stakes world of reality TV, nuance was often sacrificed for entertainment. Worse, as the show gained popularity, Noah became a target for online ridicule. Viewers questioned his masculinity, his motives, even his intelligence. It was a harsh reminder that public perception can be cruel, especially when you're different. But Noah remained committed. He wanted to support his family. He believed in their mission to show the world a different way of life. And most of all, he was determined to prove that brains had just as much a place in the bush as brawn. It didn't take long for fans to recognize that Noah Brown was unlike anyone else on the show, or on television for that matter. While his siblings built cabins and hunted elk, Noah was wiring makeshift electronics and sketching out solar panel designs using old car parts. He was a bush scientist, a one-man workshop in the middle of nowhere. His uniqueness was both a gift and a curse. On one hand, Noah's intellectual pursuits captivated fans who saw beyond his awkwardness. They admired his ambition, his relentless creativity, and the way he approached problems differently. There was something beautiful about watching a young man build a security system in the forest using scrap materials, or attempt to build a working refrigerator powered by a river. But on the other hand, Noah's eccentric nature made him an easy target for criticism. Social media buzzed with jokes at his expense. Memes mocked his style of speech. Comment threads labeled him delusional or cringe. The world can be unkind to those who don't fit the mold, and Noah was experiencing it in real time, with millions of people watching. Behind the scenes, this hurt Noah deeply. He was never trying to be a character. He wasn't acting. He was just being himself, a highly intelligent, emotionally sensitive individual raised in isolation and thrust suddenly into the public eye. To make matters more complex, even within the family, Noah sometimes felt misunderstood. His siblings were supportive, but they didn't always connect with his mind. His ideas, which to him were logical and inspired, often seemed overly complicated or unnecessary to his brothers. Despite this, Noah didn't change. If anything, he leaned further into his interests. He read science textbooks, practiced engineering with junkyard scraps, and kept a notebook of inventions he hoped to one day patent. He dreamed of building a self-sustaining homestead powered entirely by renewable energy. It was an ambitious vision, but it was authentically Noah. Still, being misunderstood takes a toll, even on the strongest minds. And Noah, with his growing desire for independence, was beginning to feel the pressure of being a Brown while wanting to become something more. In the midst of personal struggles, Noah found an unexpected light: love. Around 2016, Noah met Rain Alicia, a bright, lively young woman with a deep appreciation for nature and intellect. For the first time, Noah had found someone who not only understood him but celebrated his uniqueness. Rain didn't just tolerate his quirks, she loved them. She supported his ambitions, shared in his dreams, and offered emotional warmth that Noah had rarely experienced outside of his family. But their relationship would not be easy. The public reaction was swift and divided. Some fans welcomed Rain, happy that Noah had found love. Others were skeptical, accusing her of seeking fame or manipulating Noah. The harshest criticism came from rumors that even members of the Brown family disapproved of her. Claims that were never officially confirmed, but widely discussed in fan forums and tabloid articles. The scrutiny put immense pressure on Noah. Caught between loyalty to his family and love for Rain, he began to withdraw from the spotlight. Filming became more difficult. Tensions reportedly rose behind the scenes. But Noah stood firm. In April 2018, he and Rain married in a quiet ceremony. It was a turning point, a moment of joy amid mounting public pressure. A year later, the couple welcomed their first child, Elijah Connor Brown, and Noah was now a father. For a brief moment, things seemed to be turning around. But little did he know, the greatest tragedies of his life still lay ahead. On February 7, 2021, the Brown family was rocked by the death of its patriarch, Billy Brown. He had suffered a fatal seizure at the family's North Star Ranch in Washington. The man who had led his family through decades of wilderness hardship, who had raised 7 children in the heart of the Alaskan frontier, was gone. For Noah, the loss was monumental. Billy had been more than a father. He was a spiritual guide, a mentor, and the force that kept the family unit together. Noah often credited his father with encouraging his creative pursuits, even when the rest of the world saw him as strange. "My dad believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself," Noah would later say. But Billy's death didn't just leave a hole in the family, it ignited a storm of complications. In the days that followed, news outlets reported that Billy had left no formal will. Questions arose about who would take over the family estate, and disputes over property ownership quickly surfaced. The Alaskan Bush People show continued to film, even weaving the mourning process into the storyline. Yet behind the scenes, things were far from peaceful. Legal documents later revealed that the Brown family faced significant medical debt following Billy's death, including a $27,000 hospital bill. Noah, already under immense emotional strain, was pulled into the stress of managing family affairs, maintaining the ranch, and dealing with public scrutiny. He also had to take on a new role within the family, the steadying force. As one of the more responsible siblings, Noah found himself trying to balance the needs of his grieving mother, Ami, with his obligations to Rain and their child. He was grieving while holding others up, an exhausting emotional task. The death of Billy Brown wasn't just a tragedy. It was the moment that fractured the family's core. Without their leader, the Browns struggled to find direction, and Noah found himself standing in the eye of a storm he never asked for. In the wake of Billy Brown's death, the already complicated life of Noah Brown became even more turbulent. The family's off-the-grid lifestyle, once romanticized by the show, began to draw legal scrutiny. Allegations surfaced that the Browns had misrepresented their residency to obtain benefits. Land disputes over the North Star Ranch became public knowledge. The Browns were no longer just quirky reality stars, they were now entangled in legal and financial uncertainty. Noah, who had always preferred solitude and small circles of trust, began withdrawing even further from the spotlight. His appearances on Alaskan Bush People became less frequent. He avoided interviews. On social media, he posted sporadically, mostly sharing cryptic messages or family photos that revealed little of what was going on behind the scenes. Fans began to speculate, was Noah leaving the show? Was he feuding with his siblings? Had the death of Billy Brown fractured the family beyond repair? Fueling the fire were rumors that Noah had moved away from the mountain, perhaps in search of a safer and more conventional life for his wife and son. Others claimed he was working on a personal project, possibly an off-grid invention or independent business venture. The mystery only deepened his legend. Amid the silence, Noah was dealing with intense personal battles. Legal stress, emotional burnout, and ongoing family tension had left him drained. There were whispers, never confirmed, of Noah seeking therapy or struggling with depression. Whether true or not, what was clear to those watching was this: Noah Brown, once the eccentric light of the Brown family, was now deeply burdened by grief, pressure, and the unrelenting gaze of the public. By late 2022 and into 2023, viewers began to notice a pattern. Noah Brown was appearing less and less on Alaskan Bush People. In early seasons, he was front and center, building gadgets, helping with construction, or navigating family disputes. Now, he was almost absent. The show itself had begun to shift focus toward Bear's chaotic love life, Gabe's struggles, and Rain's coming-of-age story. Fans speculated that Noah had either quit the show or was being phased out. Neither Discovery Channel nor Noah made any official announcement. But his absence spoke volumes. Some sources close to the production claimed that Noah had expressed frustration with how he was portrayed. Others said he wanted to focus on raising his children away from the spotlight. Some believed he was building a new homestead on private land, possibly filming his own independent series or writing a book. Regardless of the reason, Noah's Vanishing act marked the end of an era. The boy who grew up inventing in the woods had grown into a man trying to protect his own children from the very exposure that had scarred him. His disappearance was not an escape, it was an act of preservation. In the years following Billy Brown's death, cracks in the once solid foundation of the Brown family began to widen, and Noah found himself caught in the middle. Rumors of feuds, some confirmed, others speculative, surrounded the Brown siblings. Matt Brown, the eldest, had gone public with accusations of addiction, abuse, and manipulation behind the scenes. Though Noah rarely spoke out, it was clear that these revelations put the entire family under a microscope. Some fans accused the family of abandoning Matt. Others believed Matt was tarnishing the family name. In either case, the tension was palpable. Noah, always private and reserved, distanced himself from the noise. He did not publicly denounce his brother, nor did he rush to his defense. This silence led to more speculation. Was he trying to keep the peace? Or was he too hurt to intervene? Additionally, alleged disputes between Rain and Noah's sisters Snowbird and Rain surfaced online. Whether fueled by genuine conflict or amplified by tabloid gossip, these stories added to the perception that Noah was slowly drifting from the family circle. Once celebrated as the glue that held them all together, the Brown family was now a mosaic of unresolved pain, hidden battles, and fractured trust. And for Noah Brown, the quiet, intelligent, sensitive soul in the midst of it all, it was another layer of heartbreak in a life already shaped by tragedy. Behind the wilderness and the wild inventions, beyond the soft-spoken demeanor and the occasionally awkward TV interviews, lived a man burdened with more than just the weight of survival. Noah Brown struggled silently with the emotional and mental toll of being Noah Brown. As Alaskan Bush People continued to showcase the family's lifestyle, very little airtime was ever devoted to the psychological cost of living off-grid in front of millions. But for Noah, who had always been more sensitive and inward-looking than his siblings, the pressure was immense. The death of his father, Billy Brown, wasn't just a personal loss, it also marked the collapse of the one person who always seemed to get him. Billy had been his protector, his cheerleader, the one who gave him space to be both strange and brilliant. Without that anchor, Noah reportedly spiraled inward. Friends and insiders noted his increasing withdrawal from both the show and family events. While no formal mental health diagnosis has ever been shared publicly, fans and mental health advocates began speculating. Was Noah suffering from depression, PTSD, or just the kind of raw emotional overload that comes from years of carrying invisible burdens? He rarely addressed his struggles head-on. But there were subtle signs: sporadic social media posts with cryptic messages, long absences from the public eye, and a noticeable hesitance to participate in group scenes during later seasons. Even the way he spoke in interviews began to shift. He was more cautious, measured, and distant. Mental health in the Brown family had always been a sensitive subject. With Matt Brown's public battle with addiction and trauma, the family was already in emotional triage mode. But Noah's struggles were quieter, less visible but no less real. The emotional isolation of being different, misunderstood, and constantly under scrutiny eventually becomes a kind of internal wilderness, just as dangerous as the one outside. The blessing and the curse of being a public figure is that you no longer get to own your story. For Noah Brown, this meant that his every move, expression, invention, and family decision was dissected by millions. Some fans were deeply supportive. They admired his genius, saw the pain behind his eyes, and respected his journey. These fans created tribute videos, shared encouraging comments, and celebrated his commitment to family despite the odds. But the internet is not always a kind place. Noah faced a barrage of criticism over the years. Some mocked his voice, others attacked his marriage, and many accused him of faking his wilderness skills. The line between reality and entertainment was so blurred that few gave Noah the benefit of the doubt. And it wasn't just comments online, there were genuine fears for safety. Noah's children were being talked about in forums. His wife was being targeted with hateful posts. Personal photos were shared without consent. For someone who valued privacy and safety above all, this was terrifying. This led to fear of exposure, fear of judgment, fear of losing control. It changed how Noah interacted with the world. Once someone who was willing to share his dreams and inventions with fans, he became guarded. He rarely did interviews. He pulled back from social media. He even stopped appearing regularly on the show. In many ways, fame had become a predator. It didn't kill his spirit, but it chased it into hiding. As of mid-2025, Noah Brown remains largely out of the public spotlight. He's made occasional appearances in family photos and brief updates, but he no longer engages regularly with Alaskan Bush People. The show has continued to evolve, with other siblings taking on larger roles, but Noah's presence is more symbolic than physical. According to sources close to the family and public records, Noah currently lives with Rain and their children on a remote property somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. The location is private, by design. Those who know him describe it as a peaceful place, a far cry from the drama-filled set of the reality show. He reportedly spends his time working on off-grid technology, homeschooling his children, and occasionally experimenting with survival gear prototypes. His home is believed to be powered almost entirely by solar panels and handmade systems, true to his childhood dreams. Most importantly, he's safe, he's with family, and he's no longer pretending to be someone he's not. Whether he will ever return to television remains unknown. But for Noah, fame was never the goal. Peace was. Noah Brown's story is not just about survival, it's about identity. He grew up in a world that demanded strength but had no patience for vulnerability. He was labeled eccentric in a culture that often mocks what it doesn't understand. He was judged for loving science in a family defined by physical grit. But through all of it, Noah remained true to himself. His journey teaches us that different isn't broken. That brilliance doesn't always come with loud voices and social charm. That being sensitive, thoughtful, and awkward can still make you a survivor. It also teaches us that grief can transform us. That losing a parent, especially one who truly believed in you, can shatter your foundation. But Noah rebuilt his foundation, brick by brick, in the quiet corners of the world. And perhaps most importantly, his story shows that you don't need an audience to live a meaningful life. The tragedy of fame in a real world. What started as a show about wilderness survival slowly became a cautionary tale about the cost of fame. Reality television promised the Browns a platform, but it also took their privacy, twisted their relationships, and created public versions of themselves that didn't always match reality. Noah Brown became one of its casualties, not in a dramatic way, but in a deeply personal one. His identity was filtered through editing cuts, dramatic scripts, and fan expectations. The very thing that gave him a voice ended up stealing his sense of control. It's a tragedy familiar to many reality stars, but amplified when your audience is millions of strangers judging your every invention, every stutter, every family conflict. And when the cameras turned off, Noah was left to pick up the pieces, off-screen, alone and unseen. At the heart of this story is a man who never asked for the world's attention, but got it anyway. Noah Brown is not perfect. He's flawed, quirky, emotional, and sometimes misunderstood. But he is also brilliant, loyal, creative, and loving. He loved his father deeply. He stood by his wife when others criticized her. He built a life for his children with his own hands. He walked away from fame to protect his peace. That is not weakness. That is strength. In the end, Noah's journey is not a tragedy because of what he lost. It's a tragedy because of what he endured while simply trying to be himself. And yet, he survived. Noah Brown may never again be a fixture on television, but his story continues quietly, beautifully, and with the dignity of a man who chose love over legacy, peace over power, and authenticity over applause. If this story moved you, taught you something, or helped you see Noah Brown in a new light, consider subscribing to our channel. We bring you true stories from the hidden corners of fame, stories that deserve to be told. Like this video to support the effort. Subscribe for more documentaries that go beneath the surface. Comment below, what part of Noah's story touched you most?